When you come to Universal Studios Florida, there is a lot to take in, and most of it is pretty obvious. You got a fire-breathing dragon, you got a giant Optimus Prime robot on top of a building, but what about the details that you don't notice? Some of the details you walk past every single visit actually have some pretty interesting history behind them. So in this video, I want to show you some of the most ignored and forgotten pieces of history inside Universal Studios Florida, and answer some questions you've probably never thought to ask, like, what's the point of that building? What are those yellow arrows on the ground for? Who's this guy behind me? Don't worry, I've got some answers for you. So welcome to another episode of Vincent Vision. Watch out! As of recording this video, construction for Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift is just getting started. It's pretty easy to notice all that construction when you get to Universal, but lingering right behind it is a big blue building that has housed a lot of memorable Universal history. Those two buildings are known as Soundstage 18 and 19, and they have had many uses over the years, but we should probably start with the original and probably most popular, which was Nickelodeon Studios.
This show was produced in Nickelodeon Studios at Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida.
Nickelodeon Studios opened with the park and was known as the first world headquarters for kids. What made it special was that it was the first purpose-built studio complex for Nickelodeon Channel. Previous Nickelodeon shows were actually scattered productions, and they filmed in rented spaces throughout New York. This was the first time that all of the filming for Nickelodeon shows happened in one place. Some of the most notable shows that filmed at Nickelodeon Studios were the first two seasons of All That, which was one of Saturday Night Live veteran Kenan Thompson's first roles, all seasons of Clarissa Explains It all seasons of Double Dare, which was over 500 episodes, and my personal favorite, Slime Time Live, which featured the iconic slime fountain. Over 2,000 episodes of original programming were produced at Nickelodeon Studios since it opened in 1990 to when it closed on April 30th, 2005. Alongside the working studio was the Nickelodeon Studios tour for guests visiting the park. And this was a 45-minute guided tour of Nickelodeon that allowed guests to see the sets of the shows that were currently filming there, the control room where they ran them, and the GAC kitchen where your guide would teach you how to make slime. Eventually, a portion of the tour was added where guests would get to participate in a mock game show where one lucky guest got to get slimed at the end. Another memorable part of Nickelodeon Studios was the 17-foot tall slime tower that would explode with slime, which was just green-colored water, every 10 minutes. There was also a time capsule placed in 1992 that has a Barbie, a Michael Jackson CD, a Game Boy, a VHS of Back to the Future, and many more items inside of it. It's since been moved to the current Nickelodeon Studios in California and is expected to be opened on April 30th, 2042. Nickelodeon Studios in Florida was very popular, but when they opened up another studio in California in 1997, that led to the decline of the Florida lot, where it officially closed in 2005. In 2006, Universal announced its replacement, the Blue Man Group. This would be the 5th resident production of Blue Man Group going on around the world. There was New York, Chicago, Boston, Berlin, and now Orlando. Universal turned Soundstage 18 into a 1,000-seat theater for nightly performances as part of Universal City Walk. Blue Man Group opened in 2007 and is currently the only separately ticketed live show that's ever been at City Walk. The iconic multicolored Nickelodeon building was now blue, and the color scheme of what was known as the Sharp Aquos Theater still remains to this day. The Blue Man Group lived at Universal until 2021, where they packed their bags and left Florida. Apparently, they're coming back to Orlando at Icon Park on iDrive, so we'll see how that goes. I really enjoyed the Blue Man Group show, but it didn't really change over the years and it kind of grew stagnant. They had to practically give tickets away to fill the theater every night. Since the Blue Man Group left Soundstage 18, it hasn't really been used for much else. Only seasonally for Grinchmas, the musical show that happens during the holiday season at Islands of Adventure. Soundstage 19 has been left as a working soundstage for Universal, where various TV shows, commercials, and movies have been filmed there. It's also been used for Halloween Horror Nights as a haunted house location, where it housed American Horror Story in 2016. Nowadays, there's not really anything left over from Nickelodeon Studios or Blue Man Group. The only remnant left of what used to be, as far as I'm aware, is inside of the bathrooms connected to this building. The floor of the bathroom has green tile to represent slime. You can only see this during 2 times of the year: Halloween Horror Nights, when the path is used as a walkway, or the holidays, when guests use that way to get to the Grinchmas show. Soundstage 18 and 19 were such important pieces to the park's history and were responsible for entertaining an entire generation of kids for many years. But in its current state, behind construction and covered in blue, there would be no way to tell how special that building used to be unless you already knew. From here, we're gonna jump into the park a little past the Hollywood area, heading towards ET. Before we talk about anything inside the park, I thought it would be important to talk about this statue. You might have seen it here in the Central Park area, tucked away to the side behind some trees. Heck, you might even remember seeing it in its original location in the New York area of the park before it got moved here. The statue is big and meant to be noticed, but most people probably have no idea who this is. It definitely feels like it's meant to mirror a certain other famous statue at a theme park, but this guy isn't Abraham Lincoln or John Universal. This is Lew Wasserman. Lew Wasserman wasn't just important to the creation of Universal Studios Florida, but a key player in shaping the world of Hollywood as we know it today. One of his most notable achievements was creating the star system. In the early 1900s, actors weren't even credited in most films. They were seen as assets by the studios to make movies, and were often contracted to make multiple movies under one studio, and could be suspended if they refused a role. They basically controlled their actors. In the 40s and 50s, Lew was able to flip the script and make the system work towards Hollywood actors to help make them their own independent brands. He realized that audiences would watch movies because of the actors in them, and now the performers had the power to pick and choose what they wanted to be a part of, for the right price. That's why an actor like Robert Downey Jr. can now get paid $100 million to be in an Avengers movie. If I was an actor, I would have "Thank you, Lew" tattooed on my left butt cheek. With the success of his talent agency, he was then able to acquire Universal Pictures in 1962, and 2 years later, introduced an experience that would lead to the creation of the Universal that we know and love, the Studio Tour. Without getting into like a big history lesson, Universal as a movie studio actually allowed people to watch them film silent movies in the 1910s as audience members. This went on until the late 20s, when talkies, movies with sound, started becoming the norm and they closed their lots from the public. It wasn't until the Studio Tour in 1964 that regular people would be able to visit Universal Studios every day, and the magic of movie making became an attraction. You'd get on the glamour tram, drive around the back lot and see the sets, and maybe get lucky and see a movie being filmed. Eventually, to make it more exciting, vignettes and scenes were added to the experience. Special moments would play out while you were going through the tram. This grew more and more. The Studio Tour became more popular, where eventually Universal added more experiences for the public, and then years and years of this growth led to the Universal Studios Hollywood Park that we know of today. Then in the early 80s, Universal started working on plans to expand out to Florida and use some of its most popular moments from their Studio Tour, like Jaws, King Kong, and Earthquake, as full-fledged attractions in their newest park. And then 3 parks and a water park later, here we are, the Universal Orlando of today, all thanks to Lew Wasserman and his creation of the Studio Tour. To give him some extra accolades, he was also responsible for financially backing some of Universal's biggest hits ever: Jurassic Park, E.T., Schindler's List, and he also helped create the summer blockbuster craze with Jaws. Lew was often characterized by his thick frame glasses that he would wear, which the statue in the park is actually holding behind his back. So if you've ever been curious about that statue, now you know. An important man in the Hollywood world, and an even more important partner to the creation of the Universal Parks. Speaking of the Studio Tour, did you know that there used to be a version of it in Florida? It was the short-lived Production Studio Tour, and this was an attraction where you would jump on a tram for a 15-minute behind-the-scenes tour of Universal Florida's sound stages and production area, more commonly known as the front lot. The tram would then head into the park, and the guide would point out all the various facades in the New York area that were based off movies and TV shows. They would also pass by the now defunct Boneyard, which housed dozens of large screen-used movie props, like one of the sharks from Jaws and cars from the Flintstones. This area would be where the rocket stage in Grassfield is now. You can actually still see where guests would get on the trams from inside the park. Near the restroom area by the Jimmy Fallon ride, there's a large sign that says Theatrical and Television Production Facilities. This is where you'd board your tram to get around the park. This tour went on from park opening in 1990 to 1995. It was a pretty simple experience, and maybe right at the beginning of the park's timeline there was a lot more active filming going around, which would add some excitement to the experience. But if nothing was going on, you were really just driving past a couple of buildings and then being driven around to see things that you could also see on foot. The backstage area also started to change a lot during this time, as major expansion of the resort and site work for Islands of Adventure would start in 1996. The front lot was expanding as well, with Soundstage 22 and 25 being later additions. All the soundstages get used for filming regularly, but are most commonly used for Halloween Horror Nights. While the park has shifted away from behind-the-scenes focused experiences, I think it would be cool to bring some sort of production tour back. Leave a comment down below if you feel the same way. So the sound stages were considered the front lot, because in a normal movie studio, these were typically at the front. This is where you would check in with security to get into the lot. But at Universal Studios Florida, guests actually start their day in the back lot. The common guest area is meant to mirror the back lot of a working movie studio, with different facades and unique cityscapes to film whatever you need. But facades are only one piece of the puzzle. In order to help transform the location of where you're filming, backdrops were often used. And a long time ago, there actually used to be backdrop photo ops that guests could use in the park to make it look like you were in New York or Hollywood. They worked by standing at a certain spot, and a painted backdrop shaped to fit the edges of the park buildings would line up with the camera for a pretty convincing photo. I remember there being 3. The first one was in the New York area, where if you stood by where the Minions popcorn cart is now, you would have all the skyscrapers and like the Empire State Building all set up behind the Mummy and the buildings and the park. The other was across the World Expo, where it would look like a giant spaceship was on top of the Back to the Future ride, and the other was the Hollywood sign and hills behind the Pantages Theater, home of the horror makeup show. It looks pretty good, doesn't it? It's pretty convincing. This kind of stuff was a lot more popular in the 90s, but still a really great example of the tricks they use to make movie magic. I personally love it and would love to see more fun photo ops like this in the parks again. The backdrops in the park were great ways to try and convince people you were somewhere else, but what if you wanted to let them know you were at Universal Studios? There was a really unique way to do that, and it was in the New York area of the park, right next to what is now the Revenge of the Mummy. The Paradise Theater wasn't always the lockers to the Mummy ride. In the early days of the park, this was the Screen Test Home Video Adventure. This was an upcharge experience where you would pay $30 for a 10-minute video where your family would get to experience the magic of chroma key, more casually known as green screen. But this was actually filmed with a blue screen because movie studios were only just starting to adopt green screen more regularly around this time. The first video you could make was Your Day at Universal, which featured your family enjoying the park, riding rides, even helping direct big action scenes. The other was Star Trek Adventure, where your family got all dressed up in Star Trek uniforms, boarded the Starship Enterprise, and faced off against Klingons. This one was special because it actually featured the actors from Star Trek in the video with you. Your family would be sitting in between Leonard Nimoy and William Shatner as they argued about what the most important role in Star Trek was.
Remember, the captain is the most important role in the story. The captain, the Vulcan.
At the end, you got to take home your adventure on a Universal Studios VHS with a really, really cool cover. Shout out to my buddy Tampa J for still having his and showing it off so we can see how cool it is. This attraction was open until 1995, where it was then converted into the legendary Islands of Adventure Preview Center, something that I wish I had gotten to see with my very own eyes. The Preview Center is a topic worthy of its own video, but there are already some really great videos online walking through it that are totally worth checking out. Jumping back over to the Hollywood area, right next to Lew Wasserman, is this building here known as the NBC Media Center. For as long as I can remember, this building has always been here in the park, but wasn't always the NBC Media Center. For many years, this building in the Central Park area, to my knowledge, was a sort of flex space for Universal. They could use it as offices for special events, or even test audiences for future NBC shows. This building, for many years, was a spot where team members would pull interested guests from the park to preview upcoming shows on NBC. You'd volunteer your time and be rewarded with Universal gift cards. You would usually get something in the $20 to $40 range, some people claiming they got as high as $160 for watching a show. It's hard to find pictures inside of the media center because of the secretive nature of the shows they were screening, but some pictures from the Inside Universal forum show what it looks like. As you could imagine, it was very gray and sterile, very corporate. You can see the main room where all the TVs were set up so they could bring people in to watch. The building is still in the park, currently unused, which is a shame because it's a really beautiful space. It's modeled after an old Hollywood hangout from the 1920s called the Garden of Allah. There used to be a sign outside that was a replica of the original neon sign from Sunset Boulevard. Basically, This was a residential hotel where celebrities and movie stars would be able to party in private. Some famous faces that would frequent the garden were Humphrey Bogart from Casablanca, F. Scott Fitzgerald, the writer of The Great Gatsby, and Ernest Hemingway. Lots of late nights and heavy drinking going on here, even during the Prohibition. A deep cut of Hollywood history tucked away in the corner of Universal Studios. Heading out from the covered trees of Central Park, we move towards the open waters of Universal. Often when I come here, I love walking by the water to get some of the most peaceful views of the park. There are a lot of great places to get close to the water and have a moment with the park. One of my favorites being here in San Francisco behind Lombard's Landing. But when the park first opened, this was actually one of the best places to watch speedboats. The Universal Lagoon was home to an action show called Dynamite Nights Stunt Spectacular. This is something that I never got to see in person, but I wish I did, because this looks awesome. This was a huge stunt show that incorporated almost all of the lagoon and featured jet skis, speedboats, fighters, and lots of explosions. This show was performed once a day at the park and was meant to be the climax to your day at Universal. Seriously, I cannot get over how cool this show looked. Even though it was never directly mentioned, the show was very clearly inspired by Miami Vice. The show ended in 2000, and 6 years later, we got a new lagoon show, which I did get to see in real life, but unfortunately was not as cool as Dynamite Nights. It was Universal 360, a Cinesphere spectacular, and this ran from 2006 to 2011. You might remember this show by the 4 large inflatable domes that floated in the lagoon. This show had lasers, fireworks, and featured montages of all the famous Universal movies over the years. It was also used during Halloween Horror Nights for a nighttime lagoon show. The show ended in 2011, and the giant floating balls were replaced by floating water screen things in 2012 for Universal's Cinematic Spectacular, 100 years of movie magic. I actually like this show. It was a Universal movie montage show celebrating the company's 100-year history. Many of those years led by Lew Wasserman, which you now all know about. Very similar to Universal 360, it featured lasers and fireworks, but they added fountain jets and fire to its presentation. It was also narrated by Morgan Freeman. I thought it was great, even emotional at times, and it really highlighted what made movies so special. This ran from 2012 to 2017, where we now have the latest version of the Lagoon show with Cinesational, a symphonic spectacular. It's a great show too, and features all the things the previous ones did with new projection mapping and drones. This show also focuses less on Universal as a whole and more on the movies and shows that appear in the park, which is kind of a better way to properly close out your time at the theme park. If you've not seen this before, I would totally recommend it. And if you're not going to be staying all the way till the end of the night, I would at least recommend stopping by this quiet little area in San Francisco to enjoy the lagoon. And lastly, I want to draw your attention to this building here in the park by the Men in Black ride. Currently, the building here is a Coca-Cola freestyle station, where you can go in there, get some delicious Diet Coke. They even have this kind of interesting glass screen where you can mix the music in the room, just like you can mix the classic flavors of Coca-Cola however you'd like on a Coke freestyle machine. But do you remember what was here before this? I certainly do. It was a little cooling station called Roboasis. This was a spot where you'd get into a Coke bottle-shaped mister to cool off and be able to see an animatronic alien named Carbonate. Get it? Roboasis was here until about 2016, where it was replaced with the building we have now. But for a while you could go in there and still see Carbon 8, this time inside of a display case. Carbon 8 and Roboasis are great examples of like quirky theme park memories that you kind of remember existing, but just need someone to remind you that yes, you didn't imagine it, it was real. And that, my friends, is a wrap on another Vincent Vision. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope I helped you remember something about an old visit to Universal from long ago. Please let me know in the comments down below if that's so. I love to see that kind of stuff. And if you're looking for more Universal videos like this, guess what? They're all on this channel right over here. All you gotta do is hit subscribe, give me a like. All that stuff really does help the channel grow. But until then, that is all I've got. Thank you guys for watching another Vincent Vision, and I will see you at the next one. Bye-bye.